Hey, welcome back. Let's get right to it. Fad diets are popular dietary plans that are known to be quick fixes for obesity. These diets tend to be really appealing, especially because obesity is one of the major public health issues in modern times. By 2030, nearly half of U.S. adults will be obese. Fad diets are usually marketed with specific claims that may go against the basic principles of biochemistry and adequate nutritional needs for individuals. Some popular diets include like the detox diet, the Atkins diet, the paleo diet, the keto diet, the carnivore diet, and the vegan diet. There's many diets out there that I can name, but let's focus in on the vegan diet, the keto diet, and the carnivore diet. These diets happen to be really popular right now. Some characteristics of a fad diet is that they'll usually cut out an entire food group. You'll notice rapid weight loss, and the changes are usually pretty short term, and they're really hard to maintain and sustain long term. Lastly, and most importantly, you'll usually run into some form of nutritional deficiencies on a fad diet. Another issue I have with fad diets is that they tend to have a one-size-fits-all approach. Before I go a little more in detail on the 3 diets I mentioned, let's first talk about macronutrients. Our foods are made up of macronutrients. Macronutrients are components of our food and drinks that our body needs in large amounts to maintain structure and function throughout the body. Carbohydrates, fat, and proteins are called macronutrients. The body also uses them to make energy. Carbohydrates are sugar molecules that break down into glucose. Glucose, or blood sugar, is the main source of energy for your body's cells, tissues, and organs. Carbohydrates come in a wide array of foods, both healthy and unhealthy. Foods such as bread, pasta, beans, all fruits, all vegetables, milk, popcorn, cookies, soft drinks, corn, and apple pie. Fiber and starches are also considered carbohydrates. Fiber comes from all plant foods grown of the earth, such as apples, broccoli, kale, and mushrooms. These foods contain a lot of nutrients and antioxidants that the body absorbs and uses, but these foods also contain fiber. You have soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. Neither fiber type is digested and absorbed into the body. Soluble fiber tends to be our prebiotic fiber, which feeds our healthy gut bacteria and wards off the bad bacteria, which is very beneficial to our overall health and well-being. Insoluble fiber is like a broom for our intestines. It comes along and cleans out the intestines, pushing things along and out into the toilet. Resistant starches from fruits and vegetables act in the same way as fiber. Whole fruits and vegetables, beans and legumes are considered healthy, unrefined, unprocessed carbohydrates. However, it's the refined, processed carbohydrates that people tend to love the most. Refined, processed carbohydrates such as breads, pastas, pastries, candy, sodas, and juices are usually the carbohydrate culprit behind excess weight gain in people. Now let's talk about protein. Proteins are molecules that break down into amino acids, the quote-unquote building blocks of life. Proteins or amino acids are your workhorses. They provide structure such as skin, hair, and nails. And they regulate the body's systems and functions all the way down to the DNA, such as hormones and neurotransmitters. This is why getting adequate protein is essential. And speaking of essential, there's 9 essential amino acids that you must get from foods. Eggs, fish, dairy, poultry, pork, and red meat tend to be the most bioavailable sources of protein and amino acids. However, you can get protein from plant foods, such as lentils, garbanzo beans, quinoa, and soy. Because plant foods have fiber, the protein in them tends to be wrapped up in the fiber, making them a little less bioavailable. Plus, plant foods tend to not have all essential amino acids. Most plant proteins are not considered complete proteins because of this. Fats go by many different names, such as monounsaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, saturated fat, and trans fats. You may also hear them referred to as fatty acids, lipids, cholesterol, and triglycerides. Dietary fats are essential. Your body uses fats for energy and to support cell function. Fats also help protect your organs and help keep your body warm. Fats help your body absorb nutrients such as vitamin D and vitamin A. Fats are also needed to produce hormones such as the sex hormones estrogen and testosterone. Fats are found in both animal foods and plant foods, such as oily fatty fish like salmon and tuna, eggs, avocados, avocado oil, olives, olive oil, coconuts, coconut oil, nuts and seeds like walnuts and pumpkin seeds, cheeses, meats, and chocolate. There's a whole lot more I can say about fats, and I'll definitely be digging into them more in the future. But now that we have a basic understanding of the macronutrients in our foods, let's focus back on the 3 fad diets that I mentioned earlier. The vegan diet is based solely on plant foods. It omits all animal foods, including dairy, eggs, poultry, fish, pork, and red meats. Because of this, the vegan diet tends to be deficient in certain nutrients, such as vitamin D, calcium, zinc, vitamin B12, amino acids, and essential fatty acids. The vegan diet may also allow for excessive carbohydrate consumption from plant foods and from refined carbohydrates, aka vegan junk food. However, the vegan diet has been shown to induce weight loss and possibly improve other metabolic markers such as cholesterol and blood pressure. This diet is highly restrictive and may be hard to sustain long term. Now, I'm not saying don't try this diet. I actually did it for a few years. I lost a lot of weight, and I also had a bunch of nutritional deficiencies, such as B vitamin deficiencies and essential fatty acid deficiency. This diet is great to do intermittently throughout the year. I definitely see it as a quick fix diet, but for long-term purposes, I'm not so sure. Now let's discuss the complete opposite, the carnivore diet. On the carnivore diet, you eat red meat, pork, poultry, fish, dairy, and eggs only. The carnivore diet omits all produce such as fruits and vegetables, grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. Since the carnivore diet cuts out most all carbohydrates, including fiber, it can greatly disrupt the gut microbiome and lead to things like constipation. Since this diet is solely based around animal foods, it tends to be higher in saturated fats, which can increase the risk of heart disease. The carnivore diet can also be deficient in vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. It's suggested that some of the benefits of a carnivore diet is weight loss, improved insulin sensitivity, better skin, a clearer mind, and improvements with autoimmune conditions. People with an IBD or irritable bowel diseases such as ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease may see improvements on this diet. Once again, this diet is highly restrictive and, in my opinion, very hard to sustain. So if you want to try it, be my guest and let me know how it goes. Lastly, let's look at the keto diet or the ketogenic diet. This diet has made major headlines in the past several years. The keto diet is all about the fats. It's a very low carb, high fat, moderate protein diet. This diet was first created in the 1920s to treat epilepsy. Decades later, the keto diet came back with a vengeance when people noticed the benefits it has with weight loss, cardiovascular health, and insulin sensitivity. It's been also shown to improve brain health, curb carb cravings, and create a satisfying sense of satiety after eating. The keto diet is able to achieve this because dietary fats do not break down into glucose. Without excess glucose in the blood, there's no need for insulin to be produced to store away excess glucose into the body's tissues. Over a short period of time, the body will switch from burning blood glucose as its main source of energy to ketones or free fatty acids as its main source of energy on the keto diet. The keto diet mimics fasting because it leaves the body depleted in glucose for energy. In turn, the body has to burn its own fat stores as well as any fat you feed it to burn and use for its energy. The ketogenic diet has been shown to be very beneficial. However, once again, it's a highly restrictive diet, and long-term adherence to this diet is very low. Now, before we wrap this thing up, I wanted to talk about one more diet, which really isn't much of a diet at all. It's fasting. Fasting, just like the other diets I talked about, has picked up a lot of news coverage in the past few years. There's all different types of fasting methods, such as alternate day fasting, or intermittent fasting, or time-restricted eating, or 24-hour fasting, or long-term fasting, which can go for several days to weeks at a time. I define fasting as abstaining from any kind of foods or beverages that contain calories for a period of time. My preferred fasting method is intermittent fasting, or time-restricted eating, which allows for an eating window during the daytime hours and a fasting window during the nighttime hours, lasting at least 12 hours or longer every day. I like this fasting method because it works with your circadian rhythm, where you eat and burn fuel during the day and rest, digest, and rejuvenate during the night. Longer fast of 24 hours to 72 hours can also be quite beneficial to do sometimes. This style of fasting is most efficient at using up excess energy stores or fat stores for energy, as well as it induces autophagy, which cleans up old cellular damage and debris throughout the body. But just like the saying goes, too much of anything is never good. Fasting is not starvation. Fasting is intentional and planned out. In general, an average weight person whom is not overweight at any given time has about 100,000 calories or more stored on their body. On average, humans only burn about 2,000 calories per day. If you do the math, that gives us about 50 days to survive without eating any food. This is why I believe fasting is so important to incorporate into your routine, because it helps balance out excess energy. In general, our ancestors did not have access to foods at any given time of the day like we do now in modern time. Because of less access to foods, our ancestors were forced to fast until they got their next meal. And this is why I believe our bodies were made to store energy or fat to sustain long periods of fasting when there was no food available. Unfortunately, that mechanism works against us in modern times because we have so much access to food at any given time. And to make matters worse, the types of foods that we have access to at any given time tends to be hyperpalatable, low nutrient dense foods that we crave. Well, that'll do it. I hope you were able to pull a lot of value out of this video. And if you have any questions about the material, please reach out to me. Now, the next video is going to be so important and you don't want to miss it. I'm diving deep into metabolic syndrome, which includes insulin resistance or high blood sugar, hypertension or high blood pressure, dyslipidemia or abnormal cholesterol levels, and an oversized waist circumference or obesity, and how these conditions turn into cardiovascular disease, which is the #1 cause of death in the world. Not to be a Debbie Downer or anything, but this is information that you're definitely going to want to know, so stay tuned.